They signed some guys. They drafted, obviously, Quinnen Williams, which was a defensive tackle. And then they didn't go with an offensive tackle until the third round. So the Jets, yeah, they did have a terrible offensive line, but I thought they might have did a little bit to help that out. But we'll see. Good points on that, Dave. Well, let's move. Go ahead.
Oh, one other thing. Sorry, Keith. The other thing, too, is when James Conner, you saw what he did last year, too, for Pittsburgh. So I think it was partly the scheme, too, in Pittsburgh and the surrounding people he had in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had a great offensive line and a great quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, too. So that's something you got to look at, too. Who's their quarterback there? Yeah, exactly. So a rookie quarterback last year who's going to be starting in the second season this year. So I don't know. It just concerns me, too, with the quarterback that they have there as well. And then the scheme, I think, it had a lot to do with it in Pittsburgh, which made Le'Veon Bell successful as well.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, not quite what you expected. It's still early. I kind of put him in the Mitch Trubisky type thoughts. It's like he did some good things. Mitch did a little bit better even, but Sam, we don't know enough yet. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully they can throw the ball to open it up for Bell a little bit, but we'll see. And then, last couple of years, Bell was the number one guy, besides last year he held out after most people drafted, which was brutal. And there's probably some very bitter people that will never draft Le'Veon Bell again after what he did last year. But, that's why I have him around the 12, 13. So we'll see if there's any value left in him. They did at least get rid of Crowell and some other guys. So they don't have a lot back there. And we'll talk we'll talk a little bit more about that in the position battles. But let's get right into the position battles, Dave. Why don't you go ahead and get started? There's some stuff up in the air on who's going to be starting for some of these teams.
Great. Be happy to. I'm pretty excited about the position battles. This is one thing that can definitely make or break your season, too. If you pick the right guy, he could be a stud for you going forward. If you pick the wrong guy, well, there's always next year. So I'm going to start out with the Seahawks number one running back. Chris Carson did have a great year last year, but Rashad Penny came on. He was a high draft pick for the Seahawks. I do like this position battle quite a bit. A lot of people are making Penny one of the more popular sleepers this year in a lot of drafts. However, Penny came on strong late, and he actually rushed for 108 yards and a touchdown when Carson missed week 10. So if Carson gets injured, or if Penny does somehow share carries with him, or actually even win that battle, which I don't think he will, that's the interesting guy you want to watch. So Carson, I definitely think, will be the top guy there still, and he'll get at least 60 to 75% of the carries.
I am at 60, so yeah, I am at 60 with some upside. So I agree with you there.
And then another position battle I like is the Steelers, who we were just talking about, actually. The contenders for the wide receiver battle for the number 2 wide receiver there is going to be James Washington, Dante Moncrief, Deontay Johnson, and Eli Rogers. So with Antonio Brown gone now, there's departed 168 targets, which is just a monster amount of targets. So one of the receivers there is definitely going to have to step up and get some of those targets. Right now, the leader in that position battle is going to be Dante Moncrief. They have him penciling as the number 2 tentatively right now. I do like James Washington a lot. I do like Dante Johnson, too, one of the rookies from this year. Those two guys could surprise this year, so definitely keep an eye on this going forward. Moncrief seems to be the number 2 right now, with Rodgers in the slot. So Rodgers is slotted in as the number 3 guy right now, but that's definitely a position battle you want to watch going forward.
I thought Washington, with all the hype, coming out of Oklahoma State, that he would be number 2, but apparently not.
Yeah, he was the favorite of fantasy analysts at first, but then actually Moncrief's beginning a lot of work at this point, and he's actually the more veteran of the group, so they might just go with the veteran guy over Washington, who was a rookie last year. But those 2 guys are definitely guys you want to keep an eye on. The next one I have is the Buccaneers running back position. Peyton Barber was the leading rusher last year for the Buccaneers and had the lead back role for pretty much most of the season. It could be a very explosive offense now, too, with Bruce Arians taking over. So I do like that offense going forward with the new coach there. A lot of coaching changes, a lot of offensive coordinators changed teams over the summer as well. So that's going to affect a lot of fantasy players as well. But it's definitely going to come down to Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones actually bulked up in the offseason. Jones was a huge bust as a rookie, but he's only still 22 years old. and the fact that the Bucs didn't bring anyone in to compete with them beyond undrafted free agent Bruce Anderson, who I do like a lot too. He's been moving up a lot of the sleeper boards right now as well. I do look for Payne Barber to win the job still, but I do look for Ronald Jones to take it over maybe midway through the year. Payne Barber should get most of the carries at first, maybe 60 to 75% as well. But I do look for Ronald Jones to start getting more carries this year and possibly taking over the job by mid-year.
I have them both at 45%. And what I kind of predict is not week 1 or 2, just kind of like how I feel it's going to be. I agree completely up in the air. Ronald Jones had the hype coming in, but was busting last year. And we all saw why. I mean, yeah, Jameis Winston throwing picks and them being behind so much, it's didn't do any favors for the running backs there. One of the ex-Badgers is there, Dara Gumbawale, and he was a good pass catcher for Wisconsin. I'm kind of hoping he finds a little bit of time, but agree with you there. 45 and 45 is what I got.
Okay, sounds good. Then we have the Rams running back situation. Todd Gurley being banged up, possibly an arthritic knee. He could miss some games this year. Him dealing with the knee issues severely limits him. Severely limited last year and in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So someone could emerge in this backfield. Darrell Henderson is a rookie that I like there. Malcolm Brown did well when he filled in last year, but Darrell Henderson is the guy to watch there if Todd Gurley does miss any time. I still have Todd Gurley at 80% of the snaps, and then maybe Henderson and Malcolm Brown getting the other 20%. So I still like Todd Gurley in this running back situation, but I definitely like Darrell Henderson going forward as the season goes on, depending on Todd Gurley's health.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is I absolutely agree with you. Gurley's the guy, but it was just so strange in the playoffs, him coming in, looking like he's not injured for a couple plays, while C.J. Anderson's taking the bulk of the carries. McVay's not saying anything. He was even listed on the injured list some of the times, and all of a sudden it's almost like he pissed in his Wheaties or something. I didn't know what the heck's going on. So I have a ton of caution going on. Was it an attitude thing? A lot of locker rooms are quiet about this stuff, and so there's always this speculation, but it just doesn't feel right. Darrell Henderson for Memphis averaged 9 yards per carry his last 2 years. If you're drafting Todd Gurley, there's some prick in your league that's going to try to steal Darrell Henderson in like round 11 or 12. So just be prepared right there that you're not the only one that knows this. So try to handcuff Gurley as quick as you can, and that's what gives me a little bit more caution of drafting Gurley early, just because you have to waste a 10th round, 11th round pick on Darrell Henderson.
I agree. Yeah, definitely handcuff him. That's definitely a guy you want to handcuff. Next guy I have is Lamar Miller. Despite the fact that fantasy players have been trying to replace him for years, Miller is still the presumed favorite here. It's between him and Dante Foreman. Dante Foreman ruptured his Achilles last year, and he's coming back. He came back from that at the end of last year. He was one of the favorites to take some carries away from Miller last year, but he did get injured, so that did put a stop to that. But we know Miller will end up finish being a top 20 running back if he remains the starter. But I do like this as a timeshare as well going forward. I think Lamar Miller will start out strong, but as the season goes on, I think Dante Foreman's going to get a lot more carries. Starting out, I think it's going to be about 75-25, but as the season goes on, I could see it being a 50-50, depending on how Foreman comes back from his injury.
Lamar Miller, how does this running back surviving all these years? When you have guys like Jay Ajayi that can't even get a contract right now, and you got old Lamar Miller. He must be really good in the locker room. The coaches must really like him. But I have him starting at 60-30 and evening out as well. Another person to look for is Karan Higdon. He was good for Michigan. Now he didn't get drafted, but I remember the amount of talent he had and the amount of hype he had and the speed he had. I'm not saying to draft him, but kind of keep an eye on him and his usage. I would wonder if he has the talent to look over both. So just keep that in mind. This ain't a sleeper pick, but possibly a waiver pick.
I do like that pick. Yeah, nice job. And then the next one is someone we touched briefly on this one already. Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon is going to be the man there unless he holds out. Hopefully he doesn't pull a bell and have what happened last year to a lot of fantasy owners and crush their seasons. But I don't think Melvin's he is under contract. I think he will report. If it is, it's going to be a short time he's out. It'll be like you said, Kia, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, I'm thinking, if that. But if he's not coming in, Austin Eckler or Justin Jackson. Justin Jackson did fill in several times for Gordon last year and did get some carries at the end of the year. So he would be the guy that I would favor. Austin Eckler's going to get a lot more receptions, though. If it's a PPR league, definitely target Austin Eckler. Justin Jackson's going to get a lot more of the carries and on the ground, but he won't get many catches for you. But this is definitely going to be Melvin's team, and he's going to be the lead guy there if he's not holding out.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Justin Jackson is making me worried more about Melvin Gordon because he's the bargaining chip that the Chargers have. He's very capable. We saw him play for Northwestern. He's a good back. We saw him play last year when he filled in. They might be like, well, we are only getting 70% of Melvin Gordon here, but we're only paying 20% of his salary with Justin Jackson. You never know what a team's going to do. Kind of the same thing with the Connor deal with Bell in the Steelers last year. What I do want to say is that I agree with Melvin Gordon for holding out the way this league treats running backs. Now, I'm not saying that these players are not overpaid, and I'm also not saying I like a bunch of guarantees when people get hurt and teams can be completely strapped by that. I think it's worse in other sports. Hell, if it's up to me, you pay them all by commission. If you do great, give them $20 million, do like the rest of us, right? The rest of the world. But Gordon is doing the right thing with how the league is set up because his buddy, his really good friend, Jay Ajayi, can't even get a contract right now, and he's 25 years old. Only had a few injuries. He's Super Bowl champion, did great with the Dolphins, and nobody wants to pay him, And I'm wondering what their threshold is. Maybe it's like less than $3 million. I don't know. But Gordon's doing the right thing at the right time because they're just going to try to use him up and then bring up Justin Jackson. So I think his agent's smart there with the way the league is run. So definitely be a little bit careful with Melvin Gordon there. And Austin Eckler was awesome last year. I agree with you 100%, Dave.
And then the next one we have is going to be a pretty muddled one. It's 49ers running back position battle. It's going to come down to Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, and Matt Breida. Matt Breida filled in well when Jerick McKinnon went down with a knee injury last year. So Matt Breida is definitely worthy of starter status. But however, the 49ers brought in Coleman as a free agent, so he's the presumed lead back. Of course, just a year ago, McKinnon was the presumed lead back. Coleman and McKinnon definitely had the more talent. No offense to Breida, but the two guys the 49ers went out and paid to bring in are probably the most exciting options. So I'm looking for those two to have a majority of the carries here. So I'm thinking it's going to be close to 50-50 or 55 maybe for Tevin Coleman, 45 for McKinnon. Matt Breida will get some carries in there as well, but unless there's an injury in this case, I look for Tevin Coleman to be the lead back and McKinnon to get carries as well in this one.
Okay, now this situation's a complete mess.
It is, so stay away from this.
I mean, Coach Shanahan was offensive coordinator with Tevin Coleman and Freeman, as we all know, with the Atlanta Falcons before he moved to San Fran. So he's got some love there for Coleman. Matt Breida was a very, very talented guy. And Jerick McKinnon was always kind of second base to Adrian Peterson, Raheem Mostert, remember how good he was until he broke his arm? God, Jeffrey Wilson's there. This situation is an absolute mess. Everybody here is probably a RB3 or flex at the best. So,
I agree.
So I recommend staying away from that one.
Yes, definitely stay away from this situation. The only good thing about this is that those four backs that they played last year had 364 carries and 66 targets. So Shanahan definitely does like his running backs, so he's definitely going to use them. But I would definitely still stay away from that situation. Another one with that position battle I wanted to talk about was the running back for the Bears. This is one Kiev I'm sure you're going to want to chime in on. Terry Coleman was a beast last year for PPR leagues. I do like him a lot, but David Montgomery, the rookie they brought in, he's a guy I really like coming in, one of my sleeper picks. And then Mike Davis, actually, a guy who played for the Seahawks last year and looked pretty good for him towards the end of the year as well. The assumption right now is Coleman will see a similar role to last year, while Montgomery will be the go-to guy, the go-to back thanks to versatility and draft pedigree. So I'm looking for David Montgomery probably like 55% and Terry Cohen probably about 45%. But I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Kia, though, since I know you're the Bears fan.
Well, I'll tell you right now, David Montgomery might finish with more points than Josh Jacobs at the end of this year. Brian Pace, the Bears GM, gets a complete